check this out. I'm gonna measure this pickup. This is actually, interestingly, a rubberized ferrite pickup, sorry, magnet. 595 Gauss on that one. And if I stick it on the back plate, 752 Gauss. So one of the things that people don't probably recognize with gold foils is that the foil itself is not foil, but is typically paper or some sort of impregnated fabric. And the problem is that it was seemingly commonplace, you know, back in the 50s and 60s, but is very, very hard to come by now. So this is the sort of thing that you want to look for, but if you can find it anywhere, good luck to you. What you can find is the metal aluminium equivalent, but there's actually two problems with that. First of all, it's too thick. The actual pickup cover itself is only about sort of 4 or 5 mil deep, certainly on the inside. So having a millimetre or so of aluminium is no good. And the second problem is that actually the aluminium will induce eddy currents. So you'll lose some of that top end sort of chime and sparkle that is really synonymous with the gold foils. So what I did was I 3D printed this thing here, which took forever to sort of like design up, or to, you know, to get the mesh right. Lots of different iterations, and then developed a technique for actually sort of making it press the gold card that you can get. So it's very easy to get this gold card here. This is just from a sort of local stationery shop. You know, that was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 Australian dollars. So it's not expensive, and that's, you know, hundreds of gold foils that we can make from that. But one of the problems that I've noticed is that we actually need to make the paper a little bit more pliable before it'll imprint properly. And the most obvious solution to that is to put some water on it. But as soon as you put water on this stuff, it delaminates, like the gold comes off. So what I'm doing now is I've just got some PVA craft glue. I've got some water in this pot. We're just going to make up a slurry of this stuff. Just to moisten the back. So it's predominantly, you know, we don't necessarily want a glue, because I don't want it to stick to the mould. But what we want is it to be wet, but when it dries, the glue will hopefully re-adhere the actual foil itself. So just stick that in here. Unfortunately, as soon as you wet it, of course, it curls up. All right. So once we've done that, we'll just stick this in a vise to crush it a little bit. So let's just take a quick look at that. Look at that, beautiful. So what I've done is I've modelled and 3D printed this little casing here, and the magnet will actually super glue in here. So you've got a load of contact area for the super glue, and then this is actually upside down. So the metal base plate would go, you know, on top of this essentially. But in terms of orientation from the pickup's perspective, it's more like that. So this is actually the top of the bobbin. Magnet goes in there, and the metal base plate will glue on the bottom. Alright, so off camera I've just sort of given this a bit of a trim up, and then we're simply just going to stick some super glue in there basically. Wipe off any excess there and just squeeze. And it sets really, really quickly. So there we go. That is our bobbin. should be north facing because we're going to reverse wind this. It is north facing. Put it in Gauss, about 450 something. So 460, that's a little bit weaker than, you know, your Alnico 5s, but it's sort of in that kind of ballpark. Then what we're going to do is we've got our base plate here. I'll put some thin stuff on here. Now you do have to be a bit careful here because what happens is the magnet, of course, attracts to the base plate. And then like that, I just stick it in a vise just to try and get that nice and held tight. This little notch here, there was a cutout anyway for the cable, but what I've done is I've sort of just filed in a little notch there that we can solder to, and this is how they did the original ones, and it's really lo-fi and very dodgy actually, but essentially they start the coil winding at the base plate and actually using the base plate, and that's why we had to paint the thing, because the coil would otherwise short out potentially on the base plate. $7,000. Let's just have a quick look. It's looking good there. Yeah, it's looking good. So it's very hard locally for me to get the right gauge of wire for this job, but actually telecommunications wire is quite good because it's the right gauge. So what I'm doing is I'm just wrapping this coil wire around this lead wire. Then we'll tin that, and the soldering iron is nice and hot, so it's going to melt all the polyurethane insulation. And just keep it on there for a little bit. And I've just got this special tape from StewMac that's not special, but it's the right tape for the job. .2K, so it's not quite as much DC resistance as I was hoping for, but it is certainly acceptable. And then hopefully we've got about 3.5 Henrys, 3.8, so that's absolutely fine. I'll solder this in position, and then I'll go around that again with some more tape. So put the gold foil stuff in here. Like, I'm really happy with that gold foil. That is excellent. Alright, so as you can see, my bench is a complete hellhole of parts and stuff, but they're actually all parts for this guitar, which is really exciting. So we've got some speed knobs. They look really nice actually. We've got a nice oil and paper cap, vintage cloth wire there, and the all-important rhythm and treble puck, which I think should sit fairly nicely there. What we're going to do now is, I've already sort of positioned this pickup route here, so we don't need to worry too much about that one, but what I want to do is get a sense of where this guy should sit, like that, and that will give us a sense of where our pickup covers come in. Now, I'm really happy with how these have turned out. I give them a stain and have sprayed them with some lacquer. I'm not going perfect on the finish because, you know, they'll look a bit odd if there's like a mirror finish, so I've kind of done a bit of a flow coat on them. And what we're going to do is we're going to hide glue them here onto this raw spruce. So I reckon what we'll do is we'll just sort of hold it in place until it tacks up. That looks okay. .44. Right, so we're 0.3 mil out there. That's okay. I can live with that. So that's 85 mil there. 85.3. Cool. Now on the original ones, they actually had rivets here and here, and I'm not quite sure how they attach the pickup to the guitars, so let me know in the comments on that one. I couldn't really see anything online. Anyway, what I'm using these holes for, rather than sort of holding the pickup itself, is actually screw holes here to hold the pickup in the guitar. So what we need to do is just get some foam here to give us a little bit of sort of height adjustment there, you know, only a few mils, but really that's all we need. And then this guy's going to go in there, and that will give us a few mils of up and down movement. But because it's not going to be as close to the strings as this neck pickup, I needed to wind this one a reasonable amount hotter. So what I've got on this one is a reading of 4.31 Henrys, which is nice and strong. DC resistance 10.2 Ks, and the other one I think was like 3.6 Henrys to 9.2 Ks or 9.5 Ks, something like that. So yeah, next thing we're going to do is just go through here. I'm actually going to use some Jazzmaster screws, so that, you know, they're quite considerably too long, but they're still kind of perfect for the job otherwise. We'll screw them through here, and that'll be the pickups in. And then all we'll be left to do is give it a little bit of a tidy up. There's some sort of polishing, you know, matters that I want to take care of. Wire the, you know, the pickups and switches and stuff up, and then get the back on and rebind it. Obviously, those two last pieces are going to be a fairly significant amount of work. And actually, before I do that, I've got to make myself some more spool clamps because I don't have enough. But we're definitely nearing the pointy end of this project. So on the back, I've finished up the wiring. Lovely paper in oil capacitor here, so 0.04 microfarad. So reason I did that is because you know, I wanted you to be able to get those real nice sort of jazz tones. Normally I go sort of like 0.022 microfarad, but I figured the 0.047 is your kind of your classic you know, single coil capacitor anyway, and will allow the jazzers to get that real sort of like nice jazzy woman tone, I guess. Originally I had these wires sort of cable tied here and here because I'm really worried about them flapping around in there, but they're actually sort of quite rigid. I've shaken the guitar and, you know, can't really get much movement, and by cable tying them here, it actually meant that you couldn't really do much when you sort of pull the pickups out. Now, and I'm really aware of this, but if the next owner runs into some difficulties with the electronics for whatever reason, which I don't envisage they will, but let's say hypothetically they do, it's going to be pretty awkward for them to do anything with this without taking the back off. They would probably have to sort of like make a little inspection hole here, you know, where one of these pickups is, and do something there. But, you know, I've thought long and hard about it, and I don't really see any way around it, and I'm not prepared to put like a sort of like a panel on the back. You know, I'm using really good quality parts. I'm putting them in there in such a way that, you know, they're not sort of like baked to death with a soldering iron. They're brand new, they're soldered nicely, there's no dry joints, you know. So worst case scenario, if they did want to replace the pickups, and again this goes back to why I'm leaving these with a bit of slack, if they want to change the pickups, what they could actually conceivably do is take the pickups out and snip these and just like solder directly onto those wires. So anyway, yep, 3-way selector there, and that's it. You know, in retrospect, even with the pickup holes in there, I think it would have been extremely difficult to get the pickups in. I actually don't know how the previous people did it, but I think that's a much neater job, and it's going to look really, really nice and just be a real nice player's grade guitar.